Now I realized that when I made my last video last week, I didn't exactly speak everything. Also, if you've noticed, the arrangement in which I have here is very chaotic and different because I'm working on something that happens to go behind me, but it's not done yet. In fact, I'm actually sitting the video on top of the project. Well, nonetheless, I mentioned last time that there is no such thing as time. It is an imaginary unit of, in guideline in which we devise units of measurement. So it too is an imaginary unit of measurement, or ideal, rather. I guess that might be a better way of saying it. This doesn't mean that we can't build on it and work with it. We've done that. That's why we believe that it exists, that it's real. It's no different than gravity. It is a byproduct. Gravity is a byproduct of a source. So it too is a reaction. The reason I brought up dimensional space and that the universe is inside of dimensional space, and it too has a life cycle, and it repeats that life cycle on a point A basis, is because the idea of there being an infinite is unique to this. You can't really travel through time because there is only a point A. And as long as there is only a point A, you will only go from point A to point A. And that point A is devised by strictly where it all began. And where it ends is also where it begins. So there is no time. It is just simply the idea that we can use to dictate what is, in our eyes, point A to point B. But because the universe only has a point A, there is no such thing as time. It is a cosmic, it's a dimensional, cosmic understanding of what infinity would imply. So if you wanted to stretch, or, I guess, redesign might be, yeah. So if you wanted to redesign the whole dimensional space constraint from being point A to being point A to point B, you would end the cycle of infinite. Thus, you would end the cycle of the fact that there is a beginning and an end at point A to begin with. This is much like the idea of if you travel back in time, then you would change something irrevocably, thus changing the fact that you went back in time in the first place, because those events would have changed the fact that you would have went back in the first place. So you're stuck in that paradox. Well, this here is a paradox. If you change infinity, which is in this instance point A to point A, which is the start to the end, the beginning of the end, then there is no beginning because there is no end because there's no beginning, because you have taken what is infinite and established and constrained, and you have redesigned it. If you redesign it once, you have undesigned the original design. There is no more infinite, thus there is no more beginning, revoking the fact that you even changed it to begin with. Now, with that all in mind, I know that's pretty confusing, but hear me out. Funny thing, as I just said, there is no such thing as time. However, the flow of space is still there, so I'm going to use the word time to make it a little simpler to understand. The original timeline is infinite, right? So with you, infinite, you're no longer a part of it. You're a part of the redesign because that's what you did, right? So you would be removed from the very space, or the original flow of space that thus an alternate dimension, because that's how this works, you're no longer a part of that original flow of space. You're a part of a new flow of space. And this new flow of space only exists because you can't change, or rather redesign, something that already is, and it has its constraint and its reality. Having said that, it is equivalent to having two objects occupying the same space at the same time. There is no difference to that. It is under the same umbrella of effects. It's not the same, but it's under the same umbrella of effects. So the only way the dimensional space that we are constrained in can compensate that decision is one of two things: completely revoke your ability to do so, thus kind of a kickback, or a kickback of effects. And I'm not going to go into that because that's further aside from where I'm trying to go with. Or it can kind of asexually produce a parallel dimension, or dimensional space, where there is nothing, or rather there is a copy of what already is. So, but the difference is, original, there's a point A and a point A. This other one is a point A to a point B. There is a start, there is a finish, and that's it. There's no infinite anymore. So once you get to the end of that dimensional space, which is, it can't happen, because dimensional space, unlike a flat surface, there's something above it. The dimensional space is ongoing. It's infinite in its own expanse, but it's also infinite in its internal expanse. So, because when you create something within dimensional space, you create another dimensional space. So in order to travel through time, you have to exit the dimensional space you are trying to travel in to a point in that point A space. So I was thinking how best to explain why in the Bible it is stated that God is the beginning and the end. Well, if he's on the outside of this dimensional space in which he created, much like I said that we could create our own dimensional space, we could modify all aspects of the point A. Thus, we would be completely and fully aware of the beginning and all the way to the end, where thus it begins again. Having that in mind, there is plenty to say. Our dimensional space, which our universe lives out its life cycle, has the potential to have lived through that cycle an unfathomable or unprecedented number of times. Since we are inside this cycle ourselves, we could have lived before. It's not a reanimation. It's not a reincarnation. It's just a rehappening of what has already happened. So when the Bible states all things have happened before, there's nothing new, nothing is new, that becomes so easy to understand now. It's very easy to grasp, because if we're talking about an entity much like ourselves, because in the beginning it is stated that God made us in his image. So what if outside of this dimensional space there is more that exists? It's not totally unheard of as an idea. It's easy to understand once you have grasped the idea that we live inside of this infinity that I explained. that now we can see why Jesus was able to do what he was able to do. Why God the Father is able to do what he's able to do. And why God the Spirit is able to do what he's able to do. So God the Son, Jesus, is intermediating for us, because the only way we could possibly do what he does is if we existed parallel, pretty much at the same time, in this dimensional space and on the outside of this dimensional space. And that is the only way one individual can occupy two spaces at the same time. Not one space, two objects in one space, but one object in two spaces. So it's different. With that, Jesus is then able to make modifications at point A to compensate repetitively to the point A of the ending. So, as complicated as this is, science is complicated. It's not something that you can totally debate, because we can't confirm anything in science. Science is literally the discovery of what already is. It is not a source of control. Math is really just another language to understand what already is and to be used for that, okay, for our understanding, and to develop extended ways to understand. So when someone says they are a god, they are a fool. If they say they are always right, they are a fool. A reason for that is because if, let's say, somebody changes something about the science that we know, I'm just going to put it like that, it's pretty mature, pretty premature to suggest that science is a main term. It's a byproduct. It's, again, the discovery of what already is. And the more we discover, the more we understand. But what is the point? Because if we really are just subjects caught in a stream, a river of infinite, of point A to point A, rather than there actually being a legitimate beginning to an actual legitimate end, even though there is, then the value of us trying to discover that beginning inevitably would bring us to more questions as to what is the beginning of what is outside our dimensional space. No answer in science has ever brought resolution. It has only brought us to ask more questions. So, having said all of that stuff, probably annoying you, probably getting you to rant in a different way, okay? Again, this is just my take on it. It's not like I'm actually telling you this is all reality, even though that is my statements, because I don't know. But this is how I see it, because this is how I have been able to conclude, and it makes a lot of sense to me if it was this way. That is why it makes more sense to suggest that God is just as physical as we are, but lives outside of our dimensional space, and that's why he's able to do all the things he's able to do, including come at the right time, make all the right adjustments, and maintain the fact that we have a choice of our own. He's not a genie in a lamp. He's not there to like, oh, hey, I prayed this. Why didn't you come and grant it? That's what you said, right? Ask, in my name, and it'll be given. Well, the thing is, in accordance to the Bible, there's a underlining fact. of how that cheat activates, if you will. It goes like this. Ask in my name anything pertaining to the betterment of my kingdom and your involvement in my kingdom, of course. The betterment of my will and mind, and it will be given to you. So it's not that, hey, I need money to pay for my bills. Well, of course you do. But there's another scripture that is stated, if you give it to I'm going to paraphrase, but if you give to somebody something that they need and the time, it'll be appreciated. However, they'll just keep coming back. But if you teach them how to acquire what they're asking for, they'll never come back to you because they can just get it themselves now. There's no need, right? So, if we're trying to seek out answers or solutions or resolve, it's better if we learn. Thus, the discovery of the answers that already are. Once we have those, guess what? We don't actually go and ask again because we just go and get it ourselves. It's called maturity. It's a key part of being what is known as a growing adult. With those that have ADHD, we never actually ever grow up. We have quirks, as I call them. And essentially, we grow smarter, more understanding, more intelligent, I guess you might suggest. I think it's more knowledge and understanding and wisdom, and we collaborate, and then we goof up and we do stuff that doesn't exactly point to the fact that we have either of those. That's what we call quirks within our development as an adult or a growing adult, which makes us look like children who have not grown up. We have actually created or developed or discovered answers and solutions and resolves beyond the number of to those that don't have ADHD or the quirks that we have. So technically we have fulfilled our place in this world more times than we would prefer to count. In comparison and contrast to times that we have screwed things up just as equally. Okay, now that I've said that, I'm thinking that you understand now where I'm coming from and why I seem to behave the way I do. I don't give excuses to myself. I always look for a way to improve, because I believe that even though I have these quirks, that does not mean I cannot abuse the quirks to a better resolve, to a better outcome, to a situation that would otherwise be totally demolished by the fact that I have these quirks. And this again points towards what is known as being a scientist. We are there to discover, we have a drive to discover answers and solutions and resolves to that which already exists. Questions or answers or solutions or resolves therein. So an infinite flow of purpose. I think that all of us have that, but when those you come across have like autism or ADHD, it's almost like that is their sugar. That is their, probably not the best term to use, but addiction, it's literally something that drives them. It's what they go after all the time. Once I have mastered something, like let's say I eventually discover the best way to play chess, so that I can guarantee that I will always come out as the victor, no matter what. I'll probably find a way to make it funner. Not a word, but you understand. So I'm guessing maybe create something new that that people appreciate even more. And that's where we came up with games like tabletop games, where it's like chess. You're still playing against a type of opponent, where you're still making your choices, but those choices come with variant oppositional choices or feedback, if you will. Variables that technically you did not foresee or might not have concluded the existence of, I guess. Pretty complicated way of saying that. But let's go to card games. Now it's no longer just you, it's again your opponent or your opposition making choices, so you're constantly in a flux of decisions being made, and we have more complicated versions of chess now. That those are because of people like myself, those that have ADHD or cases of that type of quirk. I don't exactly claim having ADHD, but I do believe that if I recognize the outcomes and quirks that come with it, and same goes for autism and beyond, other things, we are all ourselves. We are very unique. We are very active. We are very geared towards finding solutions and resolve so that we continue to move on and discover new territories. The more we do this, the more we continue to do it. Give me a second. Because situations involving other people around you change the environment and the variables in which go through your head, and thus changes the way you talk and the way you conclude and the way you drive towards an end game to your discussion and your talk. So yes, I was alone, and now my wife is here, so it just changes the environment, and now I just talk differently, I conclude differently, I think differently. Now, if my kids were here, it'd be even different. If that was even a statement to say. Well, nonetheless. Give me one more moment. Speaking of interferences, not that that's what I look at my wife as. Hardly so. Always a pleasure for her to be around. But when making a video, it seems like it bothers the aerospace around me. So while I was at work, this was the original idea that I was going to use to create a video on. It was the 3 aspects of what you choose to do with your life. And it revolves more around business, I guess, or trade, or whatever. And it was more under the lines of what fortune you bring to yourself. And it goes towards the fortune makers, which are like the entrepreneur. Multiple mixes of thoughts here at the same time. Not that I don't know how to say entrepreneur. It's just that I had multiple things going through my head at the same time. So, as a fortune maker, you make the fortune, but you share it amongst many others, okay? And technically you can make a fortune in like no time flat. Entrepreneur or not, you just have to have a good idea, a good motive, and a good audience, customer basis, workforce, and so on. And just be successful with it, and boom. The fortune slaves. Now, I'm not going to suggest, I guess I should just say fortune workers, not fortune slaves. But let's face it, not all fortune makers hire for their fortune. Some of them are indeed slave drivers. And I think some countries are guilty of this same thing. Nonetheless, let's go to fortune workers. These are people that are working in the factories to support those that are making the fortune through the use of their hard labor. You can do factory, you can do restaurant, you can do just about anything really. You're literally just working under the rooftop or rooftops of the ones who has the great ideas, so to speak. Not always the great ways to carry them out, but they are the ones making the fortune. So, but then you have the fortune builders. The fortune builders are the ones that last beyond generations, and they don't quit even after they've long passed. And the reason for this is because they don't care about the immediate fortune. They care about the longevitive fortune. There is an actual mindset within the fortune. There's an actual life in the fortune. So the one who is currently carrying the mantle of the fortune would embody these aspects towards continuing on the fortune. So if somebody were to, like, say, build a kingdom, for instance, and then give the crowns to people to carry the fortune while they have lived their time, they would know it's in good hands because they too embody the traits and attributes of the one who built it. So, but anyway, those are the three aspects. But I figured, why not talk about the most troubling one? The one that drives us nuts all the time, more than any of the others. And that is the fortune worker. You thought I was going to say fortune maker, didn't you? Because they're the idiots. They're the one making the decisions that ruin our lives and change us for the worse and blah, blah. No. I'm a very strong believer in the individual understanding of choice and how it affects us, as well as the choices that others make and how it affects us. The fortune workers include your supervisors. They include pretty much the people that make the decisions that you're upset about. They're just like you. They're making choices. They come to work, they do their deed, and then they go home, and somehow they live to see the next day where you still have not carried out your dirty, intrusive thoughts. Thank goodness, right? Well, anyway, can't really say that all the time. But anyway, so the fortune worker has decisions to make, right? And the most common one is wake up in the morning, go to work. Well, your morning, go to work, you do your due diligence, do everything you can, and to the best of your ability, and you go home. And we believe, all of us believe, that should be bottom line. All this should be expected of you. You wake up in your morning, you go to work, you do your due diligence, and you go home. Happy goes everybody. Unfortunately, that's not actually the whole story. You have to smell good. You have to conduct yourself wonderfully and in a certain way that's supportive to the professionalism of the job, which all jobs do differ. Well, most jobs differ greatly. But there's plenty of jobs that are not as different from one another. So, when you get up in the morning and you go to work, again, your morning, and you dress appropriately, you have the smell that is appropriate for the job. That way, I'm trying to get around respectfully. Don't show up to work smelling horrifying. Like, maybe say 10 dead people or 10 dead skunks, or you got sprayed or covered in skunk 10 days ago and you still haven't seemed to get rid of the stench. The point is plenty of people don't have the luxury of finding it easy to smell good at work. Even if you take a shower at night and then in morning time before you go to work, like after work and then before you go back to work, that's all great. It really is all great doing that. But I used to have a problem like that too. I would get complained about all the time, and no one had a solution. They just complained, like, hey, just take care of it. You're mature, you're an adult, you can do it. Just take a shower, put some deodorant on, put some cologne on. Easy peasy. It takes care of it. It's easy. No, it's not that easy. For everybody, it's not that easy. So, to impart some discovery of my own, what I discovered that did finally help was, granted, yes, please take a shower. Awesome. That is not where I'm going. So when you take a shower, I use 2 different 3-in-1 body soaps, or 3-in-1 soaps. So it covers a body wash and it covers a shampoo and a conditioner and stuff. It's just a 3-in-1. And there's some that's more in a bigger bottle, and then there's one bottle that covers more of the scent basis. It seems like the soap doesn't go as far, but it most certainly delivers when it comes to the smell. So I have one that does the job. It does have a scent. Then I have one that does the job, but it's more for the scent, and the scent doesn't indeed stick if you use it in order. So you're taking a hot shower, right? And so your pores open up. So you start sweating. Believe it or not, yes, you do indeed sweat while you're taking a shower. So this is the perfect time to start off with your first soap. So you start off with that. You wash yourself, and you just you leave your hair in that 3-in-1. And if you're a guy and you have a beard, you leave your beard in that 3-in-1. And you go on with the rest of your body, anywhere there's hair, okay? That's your personal thing, And then once you're done with all that, you rinse everything but your hair, or your head, rather. Then you grab the other soap. Now, while you're putting on the second soap, you go ahead and you rinse. Once you're done, once you get to the rinsing part of the second soap, you go ahead and you rinse your hair, your head. Then you go ahead and you use that second soap to do your head. Now, by this time, your body has heated up. It's done all that sweating, and the soap now, both of them, are inside those pores with the scent. Now, you've already rinsed off, much like a lotion. You've already rubbed all that stuff in there, and now it's got that scent, right? Anyway, then you move on to rinse your hair, because your hair is already there welcoming a new scent. You don't have to keep that new soap in there for very long. It's just there for like a minute, and then you rinse it off. Now you got that scent there for a lot longer. Once you're done, of course, you dry up, blah blah blah, right? And you're still warm, but you're not as sweaty because you've already done it, most of it. When you put your deodorant on, this is kind of what I do. Once you dry off, there are a couple things to realize. One, more importantly, during. The other one is after, and that's the deodorant. So once you dry off, you'll realize that if you are a growing adult, you will have dead skin. That dead skin needs to come off. And it doesn't always come off in the shower, unfortunately, because you don't have enough abrasive material to get it off while you're trying to rinse off. It just doesn't happen for some reason. What you need to do is take your towel and just be abrasive, very, very abrasive. Not like to put red marks all over you. Don't do that. Just take your time and get it all off. And then once all your dead skin is off, take your deodorant, and you'll want to do like your shoulders, you want to do your armpits, and then you want to do your chest, and then some of your back, because that right there is where most of your body odor will come out of when it starts to perspirate. Now you may be thinking, well, I use antiperspirant, so what does it matter? Well, the thing is when your body still does its biological cycle, okay? It's not going to stop it from doing its cycle. Your odor will still happen. So what will happen is your odor will go through the deodorant and people will smell your deodorant, not as much as your body odor. And then here comes the last portion, but you actually do it before you take your shower. But I wanted to say it after because it makes more sense to do so. So before your shower, you have all your clothes off, right? And you take your shirt and you lay it to the side on a good stable surface and you spray your perfume or your cologne. If you're wearing one shirt, then you only do an X on the front of your shirt, and then you flip it and you do an X on the back. It's 4, right? But if you have 2 shirts, sometimes it's called sport because like a tank top underneath, a shirt, because why not, right? Anyway, or you got a bra, a tank top, and then you got your blouse, so those are for females or whatever. But anyway, so you take your main shirt and you just spray the sides right here, right? But you can do that once you wear it, but that's after your shower. So you just kind of have to like get good at like taking your shirt, instead of like this, you fold it inward from the side. So you lay it flat sideways, essentially, and you spray the side and you flip it over, you spray the side, and then you take the stuff that you're going to wear underneath it and you just spray it once, front and then back, because some tank tops, they hang really low, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, well, for the bra, because women wear bras, they don't always wear the tank top over the bra, right? You can just spray once in the front of the bra and you'll be fine. I know this because my wife's done some changes to what I do, and things worked out really well for her. So I know now both spectrums. So now that we smell really good and we get to work, now it's conduct. It's not just doing your job right, it's how you do it. So you're going to have to deal with people. It's just the way business works, right? You're going to have to deal with people. You also have to deal with yourself. So it's always about responding and conducting. So anytime you conduct yourself, somebody's going to respond. And when they conduct themselves, you have to respond. And as long as you're responding appropriately, professionally, is what I'm saying, and not radically or too much of yourself, because the business cares more about your work, not about your personality. So you want to conduct and respond more on the professional basis, not on a personal basis. So it's more logic, maturity, some other stuff, in ways that the business would appreciate more. Then we get to doing our job in a much more speedy fashion, because the job really wants you to do your job. Sure, they want you to do it right, which is efficiency. And I believe efficiency means more to the business than speed should, because less mistakes means less backtracking, which means more productivity, which means you're technically going faster than somebody who just cares about speed. That's just my opinion, my take on it. And running a company, not that it's like super fortunate company, I think it still has progress. Patience is another one of those factors, and tolerability, the ability to tolerate, comes in real handy when you're dealing with people that you feel are just really stupid. Well, first off, you can't call them stupid. That's not professional. Dang. But what you can do is you can direct them patiently towards doing things better, or just ignore them and see if the supervisor does it for you, which is technically what the business wants you to do. That we can agree that's not always what we do, right? Yeah. So each of us, we also have to recognize within each of us that we too are amongst those stupid people, because we can allow ourselves to get in the way of doing a job that does not negatively impact the people around us, because we feel that we should just do it this way and be fine with it. But try our best to constantly recognize that there are others that work with us, and we need to be in their best interest as we are in the best interest of the company. So as long as we're doing it the way the company wants us to do it, then technically it falls on the company if other people, like your coworkers, are affected. In a beautiful, wonderful way, world, that works out really well, doesn't it? No. Not always, unfortunately, and that's where the last part comes in. Once again, patience. But this one is not amongst a personal level of patience. It's a professional level of patience, which then comes with a bit of, I guess, logic, timing, I don't know. But all it comes out as, the final result, is that as long as you're doing your part to do and fulfill what the company wants you to, and you're not getting too frustrated, you're not getting too outrageous or carried away in any way, shape, or form, you carry out happiness, put your happy face on, and you're just ensuring that your toxicity that you're dealing with, that poisonous nature that you have to talk to somebody about, whether it be your wife or your kids or somebody, to get it out of you at the end of the day after your work, you don't carry it inside the workplace, because then eventually you'll pop. And all that's inside of you, when you squeeze an orange juice comes out, right? And if you squeeze a grape juice comes out. And if you squeeze what looks like hardened crap, but isn't, obviously you know where that goes. Anyway, if you squeeze a skunk enough, it will spray, and nobody will like what comes out. So, patience, tolerance. Be bold and being better than that ugliness, that intrusive thoughts, that poison that's inside of you. Take a deep breath and just do what you know is the correct thing to do. Not always the right thing to do, unfortunately, because companies and business, they don't always want you to do the right thing. They want you to do what is best for the company. So, yeah. So what you'll do is you'll do that. And then at some point, when you have your thoughts collected, wonderfully so, you'll try to approach the person and talk to them in a way that you know is still professional and is calm and productive. It does not bring disruption to a person, because if you're talking in a way that makes the other person anxious, you're not being productive at all. You're persuading a worser end or a worser continuation. You're not achieving anything for you or for the other person or for the company. You're not achieving anything. So what I got for you is that anytime you want to explode, first, take a breath. Second, be patient before and after, and tolerate, so that you can come up with a better solution mentally, emotionally, and verbally. So linguistically, you're not just spouting and making them nervous or anxious, and you're producing a better end result at the end of the day. And just an FYI, your therapist would freaking love me when I say all this. and also, my wife's therapist, at one point, one of them, thought I'd make a great therapist. I had to giggle just a little bit, because I can be really jumpy at times. I'm not exactly the best example, but I guess I still have all the qualities of being one. Well, anyway, I gotta get. God bless, and I hope you have a great day. And be sure that you appreciate having a job, and you do all you can to appreciate the ability that you have, and making sure that that job stays non-toxic, stays as less toxic as it possibly can. Because after all, the workplace that you want to work in is the one that you want to create. And if you don't want a toxic workplace, make sure you plant the opposite. Make sure you plant good and wonderful, and you do your due diligence in making sure that it doesn't get toxic. Anyway, God bless, and you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Love you all.